This is the Empirical Labs EL8 Distressor. It's the Swiss Army knife of compressors, doing everything from clean 2-to-1 compression all the way up to distorted nuke. It features filtering of the side chain as well as the audio, and distortion modes, stereo linking, and settings that emulate classic compressors, like the optical compressors LA2A, LA3A, and FET limiters like the 1176. We're going to compare the distressor to those, as well as go through all the controls. Here we go. These big knobs are input, attack, release, and output. The manual suggests you set those to 5 to get started, so that's what I've done. Right now we're in bypass mode, which is a hardwire bypass. Take the unit out of bypass, and now we're listening through its electronics. I'm going to move to a 2-to-1 ratio. Now you can hear we're starting to do a little bit of compression. 2-to-1 is really gentle. It's a gentle ratio, but it also has a gentle knee, which is a 15 dB knee. So when you're lighting the first light, you're just barely out of 1-to-1, and it's only until you get up to 15 dB of gain reduction that you've got 2-to-1 ratio. Going up to 6-to-1, get just a little bit more of the same thing, and the knee gets noticeably less. So there's almost no compression going on when I'm talking, and then hey, you can just grab those big peaks like nothing. 10-to-1 mode is a special opto mode, which is a different detector, and it's recommended that you take the attack all the way up, release all the way down, and then you should have that classic sound. I'm going to turn down the output so I can turn the input up here, of something like an LA2A, LA3A that uses the optical compressor. Now we're at the 20-to-1 ratio, which is almost a peak limiter. Hey. And then beyond that is nuke, which is just a peak limiter. I'm going to turn up my output gain so you can really hear that. Nuke is grabbing anything I do and bringing that to a constant level. Hey. So there's just nothing different between whisper and scream. The next section is the detector section. Normally the detector that decides how much compression to execute is listening to the same thing we're listening to, but you can change that. If we select the first selection here, HP, which stands for high pass, we're taking some bass out of the detector circuit going to the compressor. So that lets a little bit more low end through and gives you a little bit fatter sound on the other side of the compressor without actually EQing anything. A lot of the classic compressors apparently don't have perfectly hi-fi detector circuits, and that gives you a little bit more of a classic sound to do that. Next one up is mid boost. If you have that female vocalist that gets into a piercing range up in the mid-range, this will allow the detector to hear more of that and turn down that overall gain a little bit more because of the EQ. Next switch gives you both high pass and the mid boost. And then the final thing is a link. If you have 2 distressors, you can link them in stereo for working on a stereo mix, or it can work with the distortion modes, as we're going to see in a second. Next section over is the audio section, and we've got a high pass there as well. However, this takes the low end actually out of my voice, not just out of the detector, but out of my voice. Underneath that is Distortion Mode 2. Distortion Mode 2 lets you, once you start hitting the unit harder, see there's some lights here for 1% harmonic distortion and then red line, and those distortion modes change the character of the sound as you compress more. So Distortion 2 is like tube type of distortion. You get that octave type of harmonic that gets a little brighter. The S's sound different as you compress more. Mid-range maybe a little receded sounding as you compress more. I like that classic sound. If we go to the detector mode and go back to link, we can link mode, if you don't have anything plugged into the link jack on the back, causes the detector to hear more level into this distortion circuit, and we get more of the distortion for the same amount of input level. So I'm going to crank up the input level so we can really hear this. Hey. Now we're getting plenty of distortion component. Hey. If I take it off. Hey. Now my voice just sounds like me turned down by the compressor. But here it sounds, my voice character changes as I get into the compressor. It just sounds like it's working harder and got that classic sound. Distortion Mode 3 is odd order harmonics. These are like a tape machine. It's not clipping, but it's kind of rounding off the top of a waveform, not doing much else till then. Hey. Now for a shootout with the LA3A. I'm going to set the distressor to 10-to-1, and then a 10 attack, 0 release take it out of bypass, hey, 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 hey. And now I'm going to switch to the LA3A above. LA3A, check, 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 check. Now we'll switch back to the distressor. Switching back to the distressor, hey, 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 hey. Next we'll do a shootout between the 1176. The factory recommended settings for the distressor to get that 1176 sound are 3:1 ratio, and then attack time of, let's see, 3.5 or less. So let's put it at about 3. Release pretty much anywhere. I'm going to pick 2, and then an output that's, you know, kind of in range. So that's the sound of the distressor. This is the sound of the 1176. Hey, 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 check 1, 2, hey, hey, hey. Hey, 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 check 1, 2, hey, hey, hey. Now switching back to distressor. Here's the sound of the distressor. Hey, hey, hey. A lot more S's and top end on it. It's got some zing to it. The recommended settings don't have any distortion modes in there, so our frequency response is unmodified. Check, 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 check. Hey, 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 test 1, 2. Back to 1176. Hey, 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 test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Now let's check it on the nuke setting, the famous all buttons in on 1176 versus nuke on the distressor. So that's the distressor. It's got a modern, forward sound that it imparts on everything that runs through it. It's definitely a future classic.